President Biden is finally shutting down the border. Or is he? Let's take a listen to what he actually said, and then I'll give you my reaction to it. Let's play the clip.
Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum. Migrants will be restricted from receiving asylum at our southern border unless they seek it after entering through an established lawful process. And those who seek to come to the United States legally, for example, by making an appointment and coming to a port of entry, asylum will still be available to them, still available.
So there you go. If you read the actual policy, you'll see that he's actually only reducing the number of illegals who claim asylum, limiting it to 2,500 per day. Now, you don't have to be a very good mathematician to plug it into your calculator and find out that's nearly 915,000 a year. So nearly 1 million people a year are allowed to come in, and that's the limited number of illegal immigrants. Put aside the legal immigrants, put aside those who go across the border undetected, doesn't matter. 1 million illegals that can claim asylum. And by the way, in that video, you'll notice, besides him being an old doddering fool who looks like he's about to collapse at any minute, you'll notice he kind of contradicts himself. He says that they're coming across illegally, and then he says that they want to limit it so that they can control it more and it will be a more legal process or something like that. It's just really strange verbiage. He contradicts himself. He says illegal and then later he says legal. So now, some might say, I suppose this is better than nothing, which is true. I mean, I'd rather have 915,000 than, in the couple millions. Now, Biden is taking action now, and this causes the public to wonder why. Like, what is Biden trying to accomplish here? What's so different now than 2 months ago when they were trying to push this bogus border bill, which we're going to talk about in a second? Why is it different now? Why is it okay for Biden to push across these policies? And everyone kind of already knows why. It doesn't take a political genius, it doesn't take a political pundit to know that Biden is trying to reduce the potency of the border issue in this upcoming election in November. Biden's in deep trouble, his poll numbers are bad, Trump is leading, despite the indictments, despite the recent legal debacles, it doesn't matter, Trump is in the lead. Actually, it might even be helping him. A recent ABC poll conducted found that 47% of respondents say they trust Trump to handle immigration problem, compared to Biden's 30%. What baffles me is that 30% of people said that they trust Biden. Man, people are dumb. Anyways, now this isn't even the most wide margin poll. I cited one that was very recent, but there's been polls that have shown even a wider margin of people on this issue saying that they trust Trump rather than Biden. But remember when Biden said he couldn't shut down the border? Remember when he said that he doesn't have the authority to do so, it would be unconstitutional, despite him bragging that he violates Supreme Court rulings over canceling student loan debt? That doesn't matter, but for some reason, super sacred to support the rule of law and the Constitution when it comes to securing the border. He can't violate those rules. And then, of course, they try to stop states from doing that, like Texas. Well, remember when he said all that? And he said Congress needed to pass a bill or something like that? Last I checked, there's no bill that's been signed. So what changed, Biden? Well, just as I said, obviously, he's trying to take this off the ballot. Ostensibly, he could do it the whole time. And he knew that. Everyone knew that. Everyone knows that the president has executive power over the conduction or the way border policy is conducted and enforced when the laws are already in the books. It's illegal immigration for a reason. That's why it's called illegal immigration. He has the authority to enforce said immigration. Now, obviously, this vindicates Trump and the Congress people who stopped this bill. Obviously, this was mainly Trump who put a pause on this bill and said, no, this is a trap. Don't fall for it. Republicans nearly fell for the trap because Joe Biden was basically trying to put the blame on the Republicans. Dumping more money at the border just burning dollar bills doesn't change who's enforcing the border policy. The reason the border is failing is not because it's not funded enough, although I would support more funding. The reason why is because Biden doesn't enforce the laws that are already on the books and use the money for things that it should be used for. We take everybody in for asylum, despite frivolous claims being probably more common than not. We eliminate Remain in Mexico, which says that people who claim for asylum have to wait in Mexico while their cases are reviewed. Doesn't matter. But thankfully, Republicans didn't fall for this trap. Biden was trying to take the blame and shift it onto the Republicans. Because if he could say, oh, look, I passed this bipartisan bill, it was supported by Republicans and Democrats alike, and the border was not fixed, so Republicans bear part of the responsibility. No, but now it's entirely upon him. The burden has fallen upon his shoulders, and that's why he's acting now. His poll numbers are tanking. He's looking bad for this upcoming election, so he has to take action on the border, but he also can't do too much because his radical base will be angry. Now, real quick, I want to go over some facts about the southern border because obviously we all know people are pouring in, but what are the actual repercussions of this? Because if there were millions of people pouring in and there wasn't actual tangible effects, most Americans wouldn't care, even though they should, obviously, no matter what. But most Americans won't. So I want to cite some statistics for you. Somewhere between 14,500 and 17,500 foreign nationals are trafficked across the border every year. About 10,000, maybe more of those people are children. 90% of all heroin and fentanyl come across the border. Obviously, fentanyl recently being responsible for the death of thousands of people. Not to mention about 56,000 illegals being in our federal prisons. And in the state of Arizona, an illegal is twice as likely to commit a crime as a natural-born citizen than as a natural-born citizen. Oh, and one more thing. No biggie, but illegal immigration costs Americans about $151 billion with a B dollars per year. Plus, of course, jobs taken, wages decreased, etc., etc. The list is endless. The repercussions of letting people pour across your border, break your laws, and get away with it are endless. Borders are a requirement for the existence of a nation. That's fairly fundamental. See, nations are comprised of some set of variables. It could be borders. Well, actually, every nation needs borders, so we'll take that one off. It could be nationality. There's nothing wrong with that. For the longest time, if you lived in Egypt, you were Egyptian. If you lived in Greece, you were Greek, etc., etc. The list goes on. So nationality, or ethnicity, I should say, not nationality. Then there could be values. America was never really an ethnic-based nation. It was always based on a set of values. Now, of course, we didn't always live up to those values 100% of the time, but generally, the idea was that all men were created equal, that they all have a say in their governance, and if they adhere to these values, come live in the United States. Could be geography. Geography should be required for any nation, but, you know, sometimes there's exceptions. Hawaii is part of the United States. Doesn't really share geographic location with the mainland, but it's still part of the United States because it adheres to the ideals. So there's all these different things that can make up a nation, but one that is fundamental to it are borders. Why? Well, because if countries don't have borders, then we're essentially all part of a globalist regime, which is maybe what they want. If you don't have borders, you don't have a physical representation of where that nation ends. Therefore, the nation never ends. Therefore, every nation is just the same. We all get along, kumbaya. That's why they hate nationalism. They try to label it as Nazism or Christian nationalism, which I don't know what's so wrong about being a Christian and a nationalist, but that's okay. But you see, and Charlie Kirk does a great job of pointing this out, and it's partially where I got this from. But borders are a physical representation of where ideas end and start. One nation's ideas end and another one's start. When it comes to the United States and Mexico, right when you get to that border, the American values are no longer the ideal in that nation. The Mexican values are. Nothing wrong with Mexico necessarily, but it's not the same. They're not equal. Countries can't be the same, they're not equal. So, even more specific, borders are a physical representation of where good ideas end and bad ideas start, or vice versa. Because America, the United States, is built on the good, the true, the beautiful Western values, biblical values specifically, and that's why the libs try to destroy it. If they can destroy the border, they erase the physical distinction, that physical representation of ideas. Now, why do they do this? There's the cliche answer that, oh, the libs know that this demographic commonly votes for them, although the Hispanic vote recently has been shifting, potentially to swing pro-Trump in this election. We'll see, Lord willing. That's the cliche answer. Everyone kind of knows that, yes, of course, they're trying to gain votes. But I think there's something deeper here. There's a lack of reverence for the nation. Our elites, or elitists, are fixated on globalism, which is a word that's kind of been inserted into the zeitgeist. But you can't really convince Americans quite easily that we're in need of a globalist empire, because America's kind of getting along fine. We kind of like our independence. We like being different. We don't even mind helping out other nations when necessary, but we kind of like to keep to our own for the most part. Help out the world. We love the American dream. So they have to destroy that somehow. The only way you can reset or rebuild something is if you break the thing that came before it. So they have to break it. They have to break our borders. America is supposed to be this melting pot of all these different cultures and people. But the idea is that there's hegemony to it. Or the American system is the hegemony, I guess, if you will. Our ideas dominate our culture. So it doesn't matter if it's brown, white, yellow, who cares, fill in the blank, doesn't make a difference because we all share the same set of values and ideals. But when you have people unvetted coming across our border illegally, coming into our country, who don't even speak English, who can't even read the Constitution if you handed it to them, they don't assimilate to our culture. They don't assimilate to American values. So no longer are we a melting pot, we're just a smorgasbord of a bunch of different peoples and value systems. And that's why America is going to fail if we don't cut this crisis off now. We're changing our identity. Not only ethnically, I mean, the country's becoming less white. That's not even necessarily a big deal. Who cares? But with our value systems, the United States no longer believes what the United States used to believe. There should be basic competency tests taken with people coming into the United States. I'm not talking about IQ. I'm talking about understanding of what America is. You should understand how the American system works, how government works. You should be able to speak at least some English, for God's sake. You're coming into a nation not understanding what that nation is built on, not being able to communicate with anybody, not even being able to read the founding documents of this country. There's no assimilation, which used to be perfectly understood that was required in the United States. And people say, okay, well, we used to let undocumented immigrants come into the United States all the time. Back in the 1800s stuff. Well, assimilation was kind of required in order to make it in life. Everyone knew that you had to learn English if you came here. Everyone understood the American dream. It just baffles me. But most Americans are beginning to see the tangible issues with an open border policy. And that's why it's going to be probably the biggest issue on the ballot this upcoming election cycle. Biden has governed with absolute malpractice, maybe malfeasance, but doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Joe Biden, his border policy is unpopular. So he's trying to sway the masses slightly. He's trying to get a little grace from them, hoping that it'll result in less repercussions in this upcoming election. He's trying to make sure that this is not a referendum on his policy. He wants it to be a referendum on Trump, hence the indictments, hence the DOJ targeting Trump in 2 cases, New York City also. But in order to do so, he has to erase some of the blame. So that's what he's trying to do. And honestly, I think it's miscalculated. I don't think it's going to work. If he would have done it a long time ago, maybe it would work. See, the problem with Biden is he walks this fine line. He has the ideological line of, okay, he has to please his base, which is a bunch of radical libs who have been radicalized mostly by our institutions. A lot of them are young people. And then he has the older liberals, the old guard, that he has to please too. So he also, but then he wants to get elected, so he has to do what's politically prudential, but if he does that, then sometimes he'll violate the wants of his base. So I'll give you an example. You know what would have been a huge win for Biden? If he said, no, this case with New York City is a bunch of bunk. Trump didn't really do anything wrong. To prove my point, I'm going to say he's pardoned from his federal indictment. Well, technically it was conducted by the state, so I guess, but strange enough. But anyways, even if he just came out rhetorically and backed Trump, that'd be a huge win for Biden. And he could say, I don't need the indictments to beat Trump. I'm going to beat him come November. But no, he doubled down. What about the Israel-Gaza thing? He could have said no. Let Israel, our ally, destroy and completely obliterate Hamas, the evil terrorist organization who slaughtered hundreds or over 1,000 Jews and took hundreds captive, including U.S. citizens. But no, he had to kowtow to his radical base. And he's doing the same here. He could have shut down the border months ago, could have said, no, I'm putting my foot down, this is ruining American lives, this is affecting us, this is costing us money, this is killing our children with fentanyl, this is horrible. Ashley Babbitt, this is where I put my foot down. But no, he has to please his radical base. And he also has to implement the globalist desires. You have to break the United States. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think it's going to work out for him. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to everyone you know. We're going to continue to push this out there and hopefully have an impact on the culture. So we'll see you guys in the next video, and God bless.